There are often times when there are topics that I really want to discuss sort of in detail. And it's not just this video podcast, it's also my audio podcast, To Boldly Pod. And I've thought a long time about doing this topic, but I've kind of been toying with how I wanted to do it. And sort of the basis of what I wanted to convey isn't really the topic, it's the matter of how your opinion can change when you're faced with more evidence and, dare I say, empirical evidence. And it's nothing to be ashamed about, because back in the 70s, I absolutely positively did believe when Viking shot this picture of the face on Mars, I was like millions of other people. I thought, whoa, maybe there's aliens on our closest neighbor, and we may get a chance to meet them someday. And it went on for 20, 30 years before we really got more empirical evidence of the fact that what Viking shot was really just a trick of the light when it comes to the face on Mars, because that is the same picture of the same landscape taken in 2001. And as you can see, with the advancement in time, the advancement in technology as far as photography goes, you can really tell that this picture clearly was resolution and a trick of the light, whereas this one, a more clear, concise picture, isn't. And I know there's people out there, conspiracy folks, that will say they had weapons and bombs on that mission to Mars in 2001 and dropped bombs on it to cover up the face on Mars that was taken in the 1970s. And I'm sorry, that's just not even feasible to believe. That's just somebody making up. There isn't a shred of evidence that there were any weapons now or then on any NASA craft that has explored our solar system. But this picture has created sort of a cottage industry about Mars, and there's so many things that people talk about. Now that we have the rover on Mars, people are really taking it to the nth degree. So I'm sure most of you have probably seen a lot of these videos that I'm going to share first of all. So yes, they found a Star Wars lightsaber on Mars. I find it so amazing that these people get all of this Mars rover footage, and the stuff that we see from NASA isn't nearly as clear as the pictures that get conveyed specifically on this TikTok account. And yeah, so I guess we're now seeing the tire tracks from the rover, and there's more. So, of course, they're pointing out more footage or more things that are allegedly left laying around this barren landscape that's supposedly supposed to be the surface of Mars, but and the rover, I'm guessing they're insinuating that the rover is making this little diagram in the sand. And of course, they have to credit NASA and JPL and Caltech and ASU, which releases the footage. But that kind of suspiciously looks like the arid desert in Arizona. And this entire page is nothing but pictures like this. Like there's just all of this debris and evidence laying all over the surface of Mars, according to them. And I don't know whether this one was created as sort of a spoof, a gag, or whether they're being serious. But if you read a lot of the comments, you can kind of discern the logical folks from sort of the believers that there's this grand conspiracy keeping us stupid, for lack of a better phrase. But yeah, I don't think there's any Star Wars lightsabers laying around on the surface of Mars. Out in the middle of the desert, Arizona? Probably. But anyways, let's move on to the next video, shall we?
Did you hear about the Mars theory? Now, this is scary. There's a theory that Mars was the original planet that humans are from. Then something happened that meant we had to fly to another planet and live on. There used to be like a civilization that lived on Mars, and the atmosphere along with the whole planet looked completely different, which made it habitable for humans. What makes it seem true is on Mars, there is an element on the periodic table called xenon. Xenon on Earth is only found, which is the craziest part, is only found after a nuclear explosion. So this theory goes hand in hand now. What if on Mars there was nuclear warfare which destroyed the whole planet, but people were able to escape just in time, landed on Earth, and they had to restart from nothing? This could also be a reason why we are the only species with half the level of consciousness that we have, because we are aliens. The scariest part, the most interesting part about this theory is that we might have to do it again as soon as more countries have nuclear weapons.
Now, this theory that Joe Rogan just put out there has been around for quite a while. And it even got spoofed on an episode of Futurama a while ago. The fact that and they kind of tied it into the Mayan clock or the Mayan calendar in 2012, that we had to leave the Earth in 2012 because it was going to explode, because it was going to get hit by a giant asteroid. And I'm not going to go into the details of the Futurama episode, but they kind of played this theory along the same time that we actually came from Mars in the first place. So he's right about the theory that it is out there. But I'm not even sure where it started. It may have started way back in the 70s with the face on Mars, and somebody could have created it. But it has really grown a sort of life of its own within the fringe sciences, if you will. There isn't one single shred of evidence that would convey the fact that we came from Mars and that's why we're here now. And there's this sort of dichotomy between people that have religious beliefs and people that have sort of a conspiratorial belief that the religious folks are no, we've only been on this planet for roughly 2,500 years or so. And the conspiratorial folks really buy into the fact that we were planted here by aliens who saved us from Mars being destroyed. But if you go through the whole scientific timeline of our evolution here, and I know some people don't like hearing the word evolution, but we did evolve. We would have been primates if aliens grabbed us on Mars and dropped us here. It's a fun little theory to think about, but there isn't a single shred of evidence that we used to live on Mars.
All right, they found a man walking on Mars, but in reality, they found probably a statue of a man on Mars.
Now, this video, this picture is old. It's from when the Mars rover first landed, and people in the aughts really took to this picture and ran with it because it's a rock formation that resembles a biped kind of standing there. And it's funny to see that 20 years later, people are still buying into it. The fact that they zoom in and you get certain angles with lighting and everything, yeah, it does look like a statue, but it's just a rock formation that looks like a being. And we get that all the time looking at clouds. We get it all the time looking at the forest or looking at mountains and everything. It's kind of just a fact of your brain and sort of a trick of light.
I mean, that's what it looks like. At least there, you can obviously see the head, the arm kind of hanging out, almost like I don't know. To me, it looks like maybe a religious statue or something, but that's all speculation. But if you
Yes, it is speculation with zero evidence behind it.
guys remember, they have found multiple ruins on Mars.
No, they haven't. They've found multiple things that people pick out and claim that they're ruins, but they have not found multiple ruins.
Found toppled over columns. They've found these massive mile-long square cut, just infrastructure.
That's the funny thing, and we talked a little bit a while ago about the moon, where people saying you can't have straight lines, you can't have 45-degree angles in nature, but they just conveniently forget that, yeah, you kind of can. Somebody isn't there with a compass sizing up whether it is identically 45 degrees or not. And as far as finding ruins on Mars, they have not found any ruins on Mars. People think that they have from some of these pictures, like the statue here, and they just assume, maybe they want to believe that there was life on Mars. And maybe there was life on Mars millions of years ago, but I don't think NASA's going to hide the fact that they went all that way to Mars not to discover that there was life there.
And I thought this was really interesting. I had to share it with you guys because it's crazy. There's a lot of different things that they found on Mars. I don't know if you guys remember, but like a couple months ago, they found like the Tic Tac UFO on.
Now, I was going to share the video of the Tic Tac UFO, and maybe I'll add it on a future video, but that's not even remotely, I mean, it's too perfect to be captured, and everyone immediately thinks it's like the Tic Tac video from 2017. And yeah, no. If you don't want to wait for me to do a follow-up video, you can find the Tic Tac video on Mars easily on TikTok or just putting it in Google.
Mars that looked, and they were like, oh, it's just a rock, but it looked like literally like a balloon or something. Anyway, guys, check it out. Tell me what you think.
I did check it out, and it does look interesting when you first watch it, but if you get logical about it and you really start to use your brain about everything, you can really realize that you're seeing what you want to see with a lot of that. And that, unfortunately, I think is what has happened with this. And that happened to me when I was a little kid, like I said at the beginning, that we saw this and we immediately thought that it was a face on Mars. It was this miles tall face that somebody or something constructed on the surface of Mars. And then 30 years later, they took a picture with better resolution, and this is what we thought we were looking at. Just sort of a mountain range. It's not this. It really looks like this. So, all in all, do I wish that there was life on Mars and we found it? Yeah, I think it would be cool because I don't think we're alone in this universe. And I do think some of the UFOs, put in quotes and underlined some, are alien spacecraft. But there's far too much stuff like this going on that really hurts serious investigation into what can't be explained. But hey, maybe you have a different thought. Let me know what you think of all the Mars talk in the comments. And remember, nothing good ever happens until after dark.